Good evening, everybody. Everybody hear me? There we go. I hear myself. That's good. Good evening, everybody. My name is Rob Decker. I'm the president of the Centertown Community Association. My name is Rob Decker. I'm the president of the Centertown Community Association. And I'd like to acknowledge that this event is being held in Ottawa on the unceded, unsurrendered territory of the Anishinaabe Algonquin Nation, whose presence here reaches back to time immemorial. We recognize the Algonquins as the customary keepers and defenders of the Ottawa River, watershed, and its tributaries. We also recognize the enduring impacts of colonialism, especially the disproportionate rates of homelessness experienced by Indigenous peoples due to historical and ongoing displacement, and work toward reconciliation that includes the restoration of our land, culture, and dignity for all Indigenous peoples. We have seen here in Ottawa firsthand the impact of homelessness on our whole community. In 2020, the City of Ottawa declared a housing and homelessness emergency. We've seen people dying on the streets. This should not be something that is happening in a capital city of such a rich country like Canada. We need to speed up our actions to move faster to address this crisis. We hosted our first community conversation with nonprofit housing partners and elected representatives in January of last year to great success and great participation. It was welcomed warmly and received by the community. And with this evening's event, we hope to continue the conversations and work together to build a more deeply affordable housing community. To organize these kind of events, it takes a lot of effort from a lot of people. So I'd like to take a few minutes to thank the following. Keith Hambley, CEO of Fred Victor, who operates Dunn House in Toronto, and Rob Boyd, CEO of Ottawa Inner City Health, for speaking at this event. Our Member of Parliament, Yasser Naqvi, our Provincial Member of Parliament, Catherine McKenney, and our City Councillor, Ariel Troster, for joining us as panel speakers. A special shout out goes to the people who organized this event, including the Centertown Community Association, Dalhousie Community Association, and Action Sandy Hill. This event is also supported by sponsors including Centertown Community Health Centre, the United Way, Colonnade Bridgeport, Maine and Maine, McDonald Brothers Construction, the Downtown BIA, the Centertown BIA. The refreshment was sponsored in part by Chef Rick's Operation Come Home and Massine's Your Independent Grocer. So thank you very much to our sponsors. You will find, if you need them, bathrooms are to my left, your right, downstairs. Please note that the food and drinks are not allowed in the sanctuary, and please, you'll note where the emergency exits are located. This event is being live streamed on YouTube, and we'll circulate the link afterwards to participants so you could view this at home in your comfort after being here live with us. So to ensure we have a successful event, there's a few ground rules for this evening. I use the word rules lightly, but some guidelines for everybody to have a successful and informative event. Hold space for each other to be authentic. Share your own stories using I language and share the space so that others may also do the same. Allow for a full range of emotions for yourself and others. Take care of yourself and your fellow participants during and after the session. Listen deeply with an open heart. Avoid giving advice unless you're asked. Everyone experiences inequities differently, so please be aware of when and how you may be making assumptions of others. We are all in a place of learning, so please be open to self-reflection. We ask that you do not use information shared in this space against another, and share knowledge, but keep names private. And we also recommend that you have a debrief buddy, someone that you can speak to. And feel free to stop, and if you need to, feel free to step out of the room anytime that you need if the conversation is getting a little, providing a little emotional for you. So with that, I welcome you, and I'll pass it on to Naomi, our host.
Hi, I'm going to do it from here because I'm too short for the pulpit. Anyway, sorry, my name is Mary Huang. I'm the chair of the Affordable Housing Affordability Working Group of the Centertown Community Association. The agenda for this meeting will first start with two keynote speakers, including a panel discussion with guided questions for the three elected officials with a keynote speaker. And we'll start with Keith Hembley, who's the CEO of Fred Victor and one of Toronto's largest multi-service organization dedicated to end homelessness and help people rebuild their lives. Fred Victor opened Canada's first social medicine supported housing initiative, Down House. It provides 51 deeply affordable studio apartments with on-site healthcare, mental health services, and 24/7 support for individuals with chronic health conditions, significantly reducing hospital visits. Keith will be starting his part by sharing a quick video of Down House. Rob Boyd is currently the CEO of Ottawa Inner City Health, an organization that provides 24/7 integrated health care to homeless individuals with complex care needs in 3 shelter-based and 6 supportive housing program, in addition to other low barrier services for the homeless. We went on a tour, Keith and I went on a tour with Rob Boyd through multiple sites this afternoon. It was fascinating, and I'm really keen to hear him speak as well. So I will pass it over to Aidan to cue up the film on Down House. Thanks.
What if you had surgery and nowhere to recover? What if your medicine needed to be refrigerated, but you had no fridge? What if you finally got housing, but are struggling to deal with health issues without support? This is a reality for thousands of people experiencing homelessness. At Fred Victor, we believe health and housing aren't separate, they're inseparable. We found that the most effective way to support our community is to bring the services to them, directly where they live. Our latest social medicine initiative is a partnership with University Health Network to open Down House, a first-of-its-kind partnership between a housing provider and a hospital. For the first time in Canada, doctors prescribing housing as treatment for homelessness.
I think the thing that's really unique about Down House is that the housing was created, but the medical supports were put inside the housing rather than expecting somebody who's newly housed to make it back to the clinic for their follow-up appointments. It's quite life-changing for people. It means that people get connected to those appointments. They attend their follow-up. They make connection with primary care. They get psychiatric care and full wraparound services where your healthcare and your housing provider are working together to improve your quality of life.
So I was one of the first to move in. I spent 6 years homeless prior to this. 1 year alone, I spent around 131 days in the hospital. I basically had to fight for myself to survive every day for that time. So I think a lot of people have this view of homelessness as people that always didn't try and always didn't have a chance. And that's not the case. I had a successful job, and I was a family man, got university and college diplomas. There's a lot of people that are homeless in the streets, have come upon hard times, and that's just something that they've been faced with. Even getting somebody's attention to really start the ball rolling on helping you is extremely difficult, extremely long. Navigate through the systems and the hurdles you're going to face is challenging.
I believe that housing and health are innately connected. I believe you can't have housing without health, and you can't have health without housing. In a lot of ways, it's like the social determinants of housing rather than the social determinants of health. housing is a human right. And without housing, you know, a woman in Canada, average life expectancy is 36 years old. Sit with that number. An unhoused woman lives only till average 36. But it's time to acknowledge that housing is a human right and is part of healthcare.
We fundamentally believe that everyone deserves human dignity and respect. We've been practicing social medicine for decades. We know that health starts with housing, and with the right supports, people can rebuild their lives. We see it happen every day, but we can't do it alone.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Keith Hambley, and the CEO of Fred Victor, and thank you for watching our video there. What Pavey and the narrator were saying in there probably is condensed, or is more condensed than my piles of paper here, but bear with me. I will go through my piles of paper to talk a little bit about the situation in Toronto, so we're contextualizing homelessness there. You'll probably find some similarities to the city of Ottawa in terms of the crisis. A little bit around supportive housing, again in the city of Toronto and what the city of Toronto is doing, and then drilling down a little bit deeper into Dunn House itself. So I'm thrilled to be back in Ottawa. I used to live in Ottawa way back in the last century, 1980s, somewhere around there. Showing my age, but it's great to be back and great to be back here on Elgin Street, which is near where I used to live. Next, oh, my slides, yeah. I'm totally lost without my slides. So I just, as I said, I'm just gonna talk a little bit supportive housing and addressing homelessness, social medicine housing, care model, and integrating supports and services into that model. Next slide. Well, I'll just go on to it. This slide is a bit of a graph. It sort of gives you paints a picture of homelessness in the city of Toronto. Over 15,000 people were homeless or documented homeless in the shelter system, on the street, in encampments in the point in time count a few years ago. And this is the number that the city works on, and this is the number that we in our sector, our housing sector, our supportive housing sector, and I think there's a similar organization. We have the Toronto Alliance to End Homelessness, of which we are one of the leads in that organization in Toronto as well. And homelessness, as you well know, is a situation, a chronic and critical situation in Toronto, in Ontario, in the city of Ottawa, and certainly across this country. And it's complicated by multiple pressures that include decades long of disinvestments in social housing, the lack of affordable housing stock itself, the rising rental costs, stagnant social assistance, unmet physical and mental health needs, increasing toxic drug supply, and the lack of funding for adequate support for recently arrived refugees and claimants. Next slide, please. So again, this is the point in time. Oh, sorry, go back, that's okay. The point in time count, some of the quick stats out of that looked at what were the driving factors that people identified who were on the street. 41% cited not enough income as the leading factor in their housing loss. 64% cited multiple health challenges, and 75% cited needing support to access general health care. So this sort of gives you a framework or the background of which support or the need for supportive housing in the city of Toronto, and no doubt in the city of Ottawa. This slide sort of represents that cost. I think maybe a few folks who have been in the sector, and certainly the folks who are at the political level at all different orders of government, sometimes looking at the cost piece. An average stay in a hospital is just under $17,000. In the justice system, incarceration is just over $11,000. Emergency shelter is $5,300. Affordable housing, that's just straight up affordable housing with no supports, is $1,100. But the supportive housing component, and you'll see what I mean about all the pieces that go into supportive housing, is roughly $2,500 to $3,000. Clearly, it's a cost thing as well as a human thing. Next slide, please. And it requires a whole of government approach to address this, and it requires a whole of community. And this again forms the background for how Dunn House came to be. You need the land, you need the capital funding, the financing, operating funding is required. And really the cooperation and collaboration of different orders of government, and particularly the municipality, looking at expediting municipal development reviews and permitting processes. In the little circle there, in case you probably can't see it at the back, it identifies housing partners, the nonprofit housing partner, the city, in our case, the City of Toronto, health partners, UHN, in our case, provincial and federal orders of government to be contributing to the project itself, community groups, and I'll talk a little bit about the neighborhood of which Dunn House is located and how community organizations rally to support the creation of Dunn House and the neighborhood as well. And communities who would actually be living in Dunn House were incredibly involved and supportive of the project in its early days. Next slide, please. You heard a little bit about Fred Victor in the opening, but we've been around for about 130 odd years. Each and every day through our programs across the City of Toronto, 3,000 people are served or supported, whether that's in our housing, in our emergency shelters, warming centers, seasonal centers, transitional housing, our food services, employment programming, health and mental health services. We do operate a consumption treatment service, not too loud for the provincial government to hear that, but we still operate it for the moment. We are also involved in a heart hub as well. So again, we treat people and work with people where they're at in collaboration on their journey, whatever journey they are looking for, whether it's a housing journey, a stability journey, a health journey. Next slide, please. Again, supportive housing, some of the key components is a housing first model for us, but we look at, supportive housing does incorporate medical care, health care, everything from laundry, helping income incentives, that sort of thing, medication support and management, in some cases daycare, although we don't operate daycares. Work with, or having accessible units and that sort of thing, another healthcare provision that's on site, and food security programming. All really to look at, looking towards working with individuals around stability, autonomy, and first of all, dignity. Next slide. This again is a wraparound, different way of looking at it. We do operate from the housing first model, so no preconditions, if you will, but we do have those wraparound support services in our supportive housing model. Next. All, again, looking to build trust. And this particular case, the Dunn House model started with UHN, University Health Network. And it was on a particular piece of land that UHN had. It was a parking lot and in the west end of Toronto. And I'm just paraphrasing a lot here, but I give total credit to Dr. Andrew Buzari, who probably some of you may have met or heard in the past. Andrew was quite the leading person and advocate for this housing, or for the hospital to respond to a housing need for people who were homeless and people he was seeing in the emergency room. He likes to say, as you heard in our video, he would love to prescribe housing. I could prescribe medicine, but I can't prescribe housing. And that's the most critical need that he saw in people coming to his clinic at UHN. They worked with the community around them in the Parkdale region of Toronto, working with tenant organizations in that area, residents associations, small organizations, larger organizations that provided support services to many homeless individuals in that West End area. They also, all leading up to working and convincing the city to sign a memorandum of understanding that they would lease the land that the parking lot was on, lease it to the city, and in turn the city would sublease it to a housing operator to operate 24/7 supportive housing. And that housing would be supporting a systems integrated approach, the housing health model of embedding health services, clinic services on site, and with a housing program team. So all with the intent of having a integrated team, if you will, delivering services on site for the 51 people that would be there. Next slide, please. Again, this is a little bit of UHN, what they were seeing and what was motivating them. Many of their patients who were unhoused, as you heard in the video, lived 30 to 40 years less than the average person. Totally unacceptable. In 23, they identified 100 UHN patients who were homeless, who were accessing their emergency room or emergency department. Over 4,300 visits in 1 year for just those 100 people. Their estimated cost was just under $2 million in the system itself. And again, people experiencing homelessness, the stay in the hospital was twice as long and 6 times higher healthcare costs associated with that lengthy stay. Next slide. So Dunn House opens. And just a little backtrack on this, that Dunn House was part of the RHI, or the Rapid Housing Initiative program at the City of Toronto. It's a modular build. And the process that the city had was that an operator would be selected through an RFP process, and we were selected. We responded and were selected as the operator. As Pavey said in the video, Fred Victor has been actually practicing what we would call social medicine, if you will, or social housing medicine for as long as I can remember. I started at Fred Victor in the mid-90s as a frontline housing worker, and I remember very clearly working with the tenant population at Queen and Jarvis and trying to work with St. Mike's Hospital to bring in clinical or healthcare services for people who were in need there, and trying to set up partnerships. It was piecemeal, it was rocky, it only was successful because of the personalities involved and the relationships you developed. There was nothing institutionally set about it. What appealed to us at Dunn House, there was intentionality of bringing a healthcare provider lockstep with us as a housing or a community housing provider to actually address housing and health together. Again, we were selected, and UHN provides the health focus part, and Fred Victor provides all the housing and housing management, the community support services, everything from eviction prevention, food security, programming, life skills, neighborhood community work, all those other pieces that make for a successful outcome, harm reduction work as well. Next slide, please. A bit on the selection. It was a little bit outside the norm of what the City of Toronto was used to in terms of selection of future tenants into the housing, mainly because we all have to operate out of the common list, coordinated access list in the City of Toronto, probably similar here in Ottawa. But the added piece was with UHN, they insisted on people who would be those super users of their system, their healthcare system, who were also on the list. So there was a dovetailing or a Venn diagram, if you will, of their eligibility and also the city's criteria for access to Dunn House. So the bare minimum on UHN side was at least 2 inpatient admissions within 6 months. I could safely say with all 51 people that moved in, it was probably in excess of 7 inpatient admissions and 6+ ED visits in 6 months. And from the city's end, or even from Fred Victor's end, a person had to be what is deemed chronically homeless. That means homeless for 6 months or more. I can again safely say that 51 of those folks who were who moved in to Dunn House, all I think were probably on average 2 years homeless, if not more, on the street in the shelter system itself. Next slide, please. You heard a bit about the elements around supportive housing. I know people at the back probably can't see this, but you did hear it all in the video. Everything from psychiatry, addictions medicines work, specific work with community support teams, our housing team, the UHN health team. Dr. Bazari actually has clinic hours twice a week on site. You saw him in the video there. Nurse practitioners, and we have a leading person who is our psychiatrist, who has, I think, 30+ years of psychiatric support and work in the homeless community in the city of Toronto. So she spends, I think, 1 day a week at the site. It is a highly supported, high support environment for people. I know Rob and I were talking about what's that demographic, that 2% or 3%, I think in Toronto might be a little bit higher, around 4% of the homeless population who absolutely need long-term supportive housing to be living with dignity and having good positive health outcomes. Next slide, please. Again, case management. These case management plans are tenant-led plans, and they work with our staff, and they also work with the UHN health staff together. We have a very comprehensive agreement, if you will, information sharing agreement, of which the tenant does sign off on, gives consent to share health information or as much health information as that person wants, to give a coordinated health and housing support care model to keep, in essence, to keep people housed and connected to healthcare. Our staff, because they are there 24/7, see the tenant every day. They are in their rooms, they're in the common areas. They see and work and support those tenants each and every day and have eyes and ears on what's happening. A clinical support person may only see that person in clinic maybe once a week or a couple times a week, but they may or may not know that that person is not eating well because our staff are going in, let's check your fridge, and that fridge is empty. And so we think of those types of things and get people connected to other care. The other thing, part of the case management, we partner with another community organization, Toronto Neighborhood Group, TNG, and they have, and I've seen similar ones up here with Rob, an amazing peer program that works with people with active substance use. They do group work, one-on-one counseling, and they come on site and work with a lot of folks. In the early days of Dunn opening up, we had to move people in fairly quickly. It was, to say the least, chaotic. Lots of people, I think 70% of the people had active substance use issues. And as much as we provided support, it was early days to develop trust with our staff and the tenants, but we brought in a peer organization, and that trust began to build fairly quickly after we brought in a very dynamic peer group to work with us. Next one. Again, community belonging and engagement is critical for the success of Dunn or any supportive housing. Cultural activities, and just go through the list there, cooking groups, that sort of thing. We have so many activities that are, yes, building specific with tenants in the building, but many of these activities are actually within the neighborhood itself. We pride ourselves on the fact that we want to be good neighbors in the neighborhood that we have programs in, and we work actively and intentionally with community neighborhood organizations, our direct neighbors, if you will, but at the same time, our tenants and the tenants there, we encourage and support them to work or to volunteer or be part of events in the neighborhood. You may not have heard this, but there's a group that started in Parkdale, a small little community activity called Dun Nation, and it's a picnic. Oh, it's cute. Sorry. Oh, sorry. I thought some of you were there. Yeah, and it's a picnic, and Jason, who you saw in the video, was one of the leading supporters and volunteers at that event. Next slide, please. Again, cross-sector partnerships. I talked about the neighborhood group and we also partner with other very local neighborhood groups to provide support services or training. We have an employment training that comes on, employment training program that comes out once a week, and other community organizations. Again, building a neighborhood piece to this is so vitally important to begin to build belonging and stability for the tenants there. They're not living in an island of themselves. They are part of a welcoming neighborhood. Next slide, please. We could probably get into this during the panel discussion, but it is a scalable model. Certainly the ingredients were unique to Dunn House, the land being supported through UHN, orders of government coming together to fund it and fund it on a 24-hour basis. That's vitally important. No boastfulness here. A good housing organization that knows how to run housing. And also a neighborhood that was very, very engaged in the desire to have housing, supportive housing, in their neighborhood. I've been, and I'm sure many folks in this room have been, subject to not so great environments where there were protests and that sort of thing. The biggest complaint we had coming into that neighborhood, why isn't it 70 units, not 51? So people wanted more. They recognized homelessness as a critical issue in their neighborhood, and they recognized the need that the people in this building were going to be their neighbors. Next slide, please. So some of the big pieces here, the UHN, to their credit, invested in an evaluation that has now a year old. It's a multi-year evaluation, so we're just getting some of this data now. And we're looking at a total drop of length of hospital stays by 79%, almost 80%, 52% drop in ED visits. And I don't know how they calculated this on the health system itself, but they did manage to calculate a cost to that, or a savings, if you will, or utilization around just over $2 million. And I'm just going to read this quote. This is from Jason, and it probably sums up the video and all what we've been saying about the essence of Dunn House itself. I got up every day thinking that day was going to be my last day. Today is going to be the day I overdose and I don't get help. Today is the day one of those bullets finally hits me. I don't think there was a future, but I didn't think there was a future, but this place has given me the gift of being able to live, but also to actually having a life worth living. I'm in a much better place now, and I'm able to think about where I want to go in the future. And that's from Jason. And when I had conversations with Jason when he moved in, he told me, he said, listen, Keith, I was homeless, all what he said. I was really at the end of what I was feeling. And frankly, I stood outside of Fred Victor maybe 10, 15 years ago. And you probably barred me because I was an active dealer. I was trying to get in and try to deal, but we got our lives around. And here I am at Dunn House. So that's my time. Thank you.
My slide deck as well, please. Yeah, sure. So thanks for inviting me. So yes, so I am Rob Boyd. I'm the CEO of Ottawa Inner City Health. I have been working in this space of homelessness, mental health, substance use health for the past 36 years here in Ottawa. I have experience with emergency shelters, I managed the housing at the Y for a number of years, and then moved into the healthcare area with Sandhill Community Health Center, and now I'm focusing exclusively on working with homeless individuals with complex healthcare needs, this 2% of people that are probably always going to require some level of support in order to manage their lives. But as you've heard from Keith and the excellent presentation and the work at Dunn House, this is possible. This is something that we can do. We have models in place that can effectively support people to be successful in housing and to achieve the goals that they want to achieve in life and to integrate back into the community. Just flip to the next slide, please. Thanks. So just a bit about inner city health first, just because you may not be familiar. This is work that's been happening here in this city since 2001. So we provide primary care, emergent care, and tertiary care for homeless individuals. So we're a very unique organization that way, in that we have, within our shelter programs, we have an emergency department diversion program, for example, one of the programs that we toured today. We have a hospice program for homeless individuals who are dying at the end of life. And then we have a men's special care unit with the Salvation Army that is basically like an inpatient hospital bed within there. And we did this because we recognized that homeless individuals and people who experience multiple barriers to getting into the mainstream healthcare system were experiencing a lot of stigma associated with that, so they just forwent care. They didn't want to get care in those institutions, and so they became sicker and sicker and sicker in the community until such time as it was very difficult to provide them with any level of support. So the idea of inner city health is that we would bring that care to people in the spaces that they're most comfortable with and in the community that they consider their community and their family and their connections. So hospitals are often outside of the places where people have their community, and if people self-discharge from hospitals because they're not being treated well or they're not able to wait long periods of time, they're very far away from the community where they need to be. So the idea is to bring this as much as possible into the community. At the same time, however, we do recognize that the healthcare system, the social service system, all these things should also be helping individuals who are homeless, who experience mental health and substance use health issues. So we're always working in these two different levels of recognizing that in the system as it is now, people are not going to get the care that they need. But at the same time, we need to find ways of holding the system accountable to ensure that when people access it, they do get the care they need. So that's a much longer game, but it's an important part of our mission and mandate. Sorry, just can you go back to the, where are we going? Could you back up one more? So it's just important things to understand about inner city. So within all of our units, and we also have the supportive housing units, and I'll get in a little bit more detail on that, we have integrated physical, mental, and substance use healthcare plans for individuals. So that is all done in one care plan. So this is a good combination because Dunn House is the housing provider. We are the healthcare provider embedded in other people's housing programs. So you're kind of getting the opposite side of it here in terms of how we approach this thing. Ottawa Inner City Health is a nurse-led organization. And so what I mean by that is the way that we think about care and the way that we conceptualize the integrated healthcare plans is based on the sensibilities of nursing, which is a lot more about relational style of work. You know, it includes medicine, but it's less about the medicine. It's all about understanding the environment. And that this is a much more it's a better conceptual way of thinking about caring for people who've been marginalized and who've been harmed by the medical system that is out there. The supports come from physicians, so we also employ physicians, and so they are part of the model as well. But it's a lot of organizations, it's the physician giving orders to the nurses doing the orders and things like that. It's turned on its head with Ottawa Inner City Health. And it's an important part of how it is that we're able to do the work that we do. We also integrate traditional medicines. Within this, we do recognize that we are operating from a Western medicine model and that this model is not accessible to many of our clients because we have a very high percentage of Indigenous clients who are using our services. And so we want to make sure that they have access to traditional medicine as well as any Western medicine that they would like to partake in. And then the other important thing is our very strong focus and commitment in the co-design and service delivery of people with lived and living experience. of homelessness, of mental health issues, and of substance health issues. This is quite critical for us in that it helps us to make sure that our services remain relevant to the community that we're serving. And we also recognize, and we recognize generally in the field of harm reduction, that anything that we know how to do, the community has done it first. And so this is why it's really important if there's a new issue on the horizon, we go to the community first to say, help us understand what's happening and help us understand how it is that we can help you with this. And of course, we are still a mainstream organization, so there are limits to that. And so there is a negotiation that needs to happen between us and the community about what is possible within that. But it's quite critical that we do co-design. And we're also, we do a significant amount of employment of people with lived and lived experience as well, because we consider that's quite critical to have that embedded within the staffing model. And there are lots of organizations that do this, but we're always kind of thinking about what's the better way to do it, what's more that we can do, how can we provide more access to this, because we recognize that this is what keeps us relevant to the community. And as Keith was alluding to, it facilitates those relationships with community as people are coming in, not trusting us because of past experience. You're the ones who can say, yeah, you can talk to this nurse. They're not like that nurse that you had that experience with. This one's cool. You can listen to what they have to say about this. The other thing about the peer stuff, though, is that we don't go far enough. That if that's all that we ask, all that we use that experience for, they really should be transforming the way we conceptualize and deliver care as well. Because we recognize that we certainly don't always have it right. There are things that we do that can be harmful to individuals. There are mistakes that we're going to make. And it's really important that people with lived experience are at the table with us at the same time, explaining to us these things, and then so we can have these ongoing dialogue with them. So it really should be, if we can do it right, very transformative about the way that healthcare is delivered. Next slide. So shelter-based programs, so big shout out to all of our partners. So the Ottawa Mission, we have the Diane Morrison Hospice, Salvation Army Men's Special Care, Shepherds of Good Hope, Targeted Engagement and Diversion. In addition to that, so those are the bed-based programs that we operate, so they're all 24/7 programs. We have a nurse practitioner-led walk-in service that is attached to the Diamond Health Clinic with the Ottawa Mission, so that is for homeless individuals to access primary care. And then we have our supervised consumption treatment services, the Trailer 2.0, that's co-located at the shelter at Shepherds of Good Hope. It's a 24/7 operation as well. And then we have this cluster of outreach and community development activities. So we have a grant from TELUS Health for Good. So we do have a mobile health van that helps us with this outreach service. We are also just initiated a partnership with the Salvation Army, who does outreach to encampments, because there is not a lot of access to primary care at encampments. So we're beginning to kind of test the waters there to see what is our role out there and how is it that we can support people who are living in these spaces. And then we have our Block Leader Initiative, which is a community development. So we recognize that things have changed quite significantly in the downtown core. And so when we went to the community, like we always do, to ask them about, what is going on, they did identify the significant impact that the shift from the opioid crisis to the toxic drug crisis had on their community. When you layer that on top of the COVID response, which was another level of crisis for this community, and then of course here in Ottawa there was the trucker convoy occupation that spilled into Lowertown. So there are these, events happening in rapid succession that was really impacting this community. And so what has happened is that a lot of the community norms that existed within the community were lost, and we also lost a lot of leaders during this time. People who were there to remind people of the community that they wanted to be, and the positive aspects of street life and street culture. It became an every person for themselves. So we said, well, what do you want to do about it? And they said, well, would you help us to rebuild our community? We would like to have an opportunity to learn leadership skills, communication skills, to identify the community that we want to be, and to reinforce that and to model that through positive acts of intervention. So that's what we've been doing for the last couple of years. They call it the Block Leader Program. They are the ones who make all the decisions about the program, about how it works, because it really is about their community. And our belief, and we've got some evidence for this now, is that if you are giving people hope and purpose, if you're giving people an opportunity, people will rise to that occasion, and people will naturally change their relationship with substance use as a matter of course in doing that. But this has this other knock-on effect of the goal is that we're trying to restore balance in the community, which hopefully will help to address some of these public safety concerns that people have identified in the community. And so recognizing that we're not going to police our way out of this crisis. We have tons of security happening downtown on the market right now, and that's not making a big impact. Helping the community to identify who they want to be and help to self-regulate amongst themselves is really, the best sustainable response to a public safety issue. And it's, based on strong, evidence-based theory around transformative justice, so it's not just something that we made up. But it's definitely showing a lot of progress and promise. Next slide. So within our supportive housing, so we are not a housing provider, so we rely on our great partners, Cornerstone Housing for Women for Booth, John Howard Society for the Rita Thompson residents and Carruthers, Shepherds of Good Hope for the Oaks, that's our managed alcohol program at the Oaks. Richcraft Residence is also with Shepherds, as is Maryville Road. So we have 6 different supportive housing units in various locations across the city. Ranging in size from, I think, 34 to 57 in terms of the number of units and people that we're supporting in those spaces, and 243 altogether, people that we're supporting. So again, it's the same kind of model, integrated care. Each of the units, the staffing for it, we have a full-time nurse coordinator, so they are the quarterback of the unit in terms of the care plan. We have a half-time mental health nurse assigned to this as well to support the mental health needs. Peer worker, we consider an absolutely essential part of this, so I'm glad that Keith talked on this so well. This is to me is the secret ingredient of supportive housing. So you can have all the healthcare or social service in the world, but if people are not interested in taking it in. The other thing about when people get into housing, especially if they've been institutionalized or they've been in shelters for long periods of time, is that they will tend to isolate themselves in the rooms. And so this is actually, certainly doesn't help in terms of people's health and recovery, but it's also could be quite dangerous. So part of the role that peers have for us is to get people out of the rooms, to animate the space, to encourage them to get involved in their community. They also do things like they accompany people to outside appointments, they run recreational activities. So there's all sorts of activities that peers do, but we consider it actually very essential part of the team. It's certainly not an afterthought. Physicians as needed. We also have a psychiatrist who can see people. And then we have client care workers. So these are PSWs and there's usually 1 or 2 per shift. So this is a fairly intensive model of care. So the PSWs do a lot of the hands-on stuff 24/7, so delegated tasks from the nurse in terms of things to do. They give out the medication. So there's all sorts of things that they do. So that's kind of the biggest staffing complement that we have within the units with regards to healthcare. And then on the housing side of things, it depends a bit with the different housing providers, but they would have very similar things to what Keith had referred to in terms of case managers, frontline housing staff, and obviously take care of facilities management and food and things like that. So inner city, like we live or die with our partnerships, and they are so important to us to be able to kind of do the work so we can focus on our part of the work. Okay, next slide, please. So, moving it back up a bit about, what is it that's causing this? Why is it that we're having this homelessness crisis now? The first, I started this work about 36 years ago, as I said. This was just at the time that Mike Harris became the Premier of Ontario. This was the Ronald Reagan days, the Margaret Thatcher days. So this is the rise of neoliberalism and the fracturing of the social safety net. And this is at the same time that the federal government began to get out of the housing business. So what we are experiencing right now is 4 decades of failed housing policy. And it's not like we haven't been saying this all along. I've met a lot of my colleagues from over the years here. We have been ringing this alarm bell for the last 40 years, and nothing has been done about it. And here we are today dealing with a crisis that unfortunately is going to be very expensive to fix, and it's going to take a lot of time to fix. So that's just the reality of where we are right now. lack of safe, affordable housing. Like, it is really about the housing. we have to, but it's also different layers of housing. So I run housing first programs with scattered models. We also need these types of programs around permanent supportive housing with wraparound healthcare supports. Basic income support. We are so far behind in this, and that people need money to live in this society. The ongoing impact of past and current colonization on Indigenous people. We're dealing with this legacy. It's going to take 7 generations to be fixing this problem, but we have to start with the actions that we're doing every day right now. Racism, ableism, homophobia, transphobia, like these are the big issues. If we look at who's in the emergency shelter system, who's in the criminal justice system, who is getting sicker and in the hospital system, you can really tie things back to the structural oppression that people have experienced. And then there's also the failed discharges from institutions as people are not getting the care that they need, and they're being just traumatized and then released back into the community afterwards without a good plan and without a good strategy. So this is big. This is a lot of challenges that we're facing, and these just feel almost like insurmountable. I don't want to leave you in that space though, so I wanted to talk about so what do we do about this practically today? And so there's a lot of talk that you'll hear now about treatment, and people need to get into treatment with this idea. I think that if people go into rehab, that when they come out, their lives are going to be better. And that if we just got everybody into addictions treatment, then we wouldn't have the problem that we have today. Oh, you lost my slide. Okay, yeah. So, however, we do recognize that the things that are around this circle, and I know that you can't really see them, but things like housing stability, connection to community, substance use health, mental health care, income security, recreation and occupation, connecting people to their values, their hopes, to themselves, to their community, to their past. Like, all of these are things that we need as humans in order to be humans. And if people begin to use substances and they develop a substance use disorder, most of us would have some of these things in place that will be protective of us, whether we would develop substance use disorder or would help us in terms of our recovery journey, because we've got the housing, we've got a job that we have to go to. The people that we work with are people who are so marginalized and so disenfranchised that they have very few, if any, of these things. And so rather focusing on thinking about the drug that people are taking or the coping skills that they're doing, we say, let's just start working on these things around this. And so Keith was giving some good examples of that from his end as well. Don't come at it directly. I mean, you can if people want it. We have substance use healthcare. We have addictions medicine access for people if they want it. But really, we need to start looking at connecting people with occupation and recreation. People need these types of things in their lives. They need hope. They need meaning. And if we can start working on these things, their relationship again to substances will just naturally start changing, because they are becoming more connected. They're becoming, they have things to do. So, really people need places to go and people need things to do. And that's a major thing that we're lacking for people right now. And people experience a lot of barriers to that. We're right now working on a small grant that we received till the end of March around recreational programming for people who are homeless downtown. And if you ask people who are housed, people who are homeless, about what are the types of things that you used to do when you were younger that brought you joy, the list is almost exactly the same. Where you get the difference is when you ask them, when was the last time you were able to do that thing? And so that's where you're going to see the real deprivation and the real difference between people who are housed and people who are marginalized and unhoused. So we're trying to work at it from that angle. And it's not necessarily intuitive that people would think, well, why would you be doing that to kind of deal with a housing crisis or deal with a substance use issue? But this is why, is because we're trying to build recovery capital for people. We're trying to show them to have some things to compete with their substance use so that they can then start examining about, whether or not this is something that they want to continue, because at some point you've got to make a choice. Is this what you're going to do, or are you going to do the drugs that you have? But the problem is that people don't have access to stuff, so we really have to start removing barriers to people getting to the types of things that we generally take for granted in our lives. And So this is the model that we use. It connects the dots in terms of some of those structural oppressions that people are experiencing. We don't have it perfect. It is a practice. We continue to learn, and we continue to want to hear from people about how we can do this better. But really, important. The other piece that I just want to say before I finish is that people will often come to me to say, yeah, but how many people got off drugs? Or, this is the metric that people want to have. How many people got a job at the end? How many people did this? These are not the metrics that work well with this work. And so we consider that success is not measured by what you accomplish, but by the opposition you've encountered and the courage with which you have maintained the struggle against overwhelming odds. If you're measuring based on things like getting a job or completely stopping drug use, that's actually not immediately achievable. There's a strong evidence base for this as well, for people who are homeless, who people have a long history of substance use, in particular people who have criminalized substance use or people who have a career of injecting drugs. That is not a reasonable expectation as an outcome for it, and the evidence doesn't support that. Even for those who are housed, or those who have a lot of recovery capital, it's really important to remember that abstinence is actually a very small corner of recovery, and it's well recognized within the field that somebody can say, they should be able to say they're in recovery if they're not completely abstinent. So it's really about the progress that people have made. Are they living the life that they want to live? Are they limiting the amount of harms that are associated with their substance use? And so the last thing that I want to say about this is we shouldn't have to be doing all of this stuff if we were living in a society that people could get access to this naturally. So a lot of the work that we're doing in healthcare, homelessness, harm reduction is around mitigating the impact of bad social policy. And so we definitely want to focus and center some things on the individual who's in front of us, but if we really want to have a big impact, we need to start addressing those big drivers of what's going, what is creating the homeless situation in the first place and keeping people there, unable to liberate themselves from it because of the arbitrary structural barriers that we've put in place. So, thank you.
All right, so thank you for some very good presentations, great information, and we're going to move into the portion of the program. We're going to have a discussion with our panelists, and at this point I'd like to invite our panelists up. First, we'd like to invite Keith and Rob, who we heard from earlier today, our Member of Parliament for Ottawa Centre, Yasser Naqvi, Somerset Ward City Councillor, Ariel Troster, and our Ottawa Centre MPP, Catherine McKenney, is going to be joining us remotely. So the panel this evening is going to be moderated by Naomi Giaretna, who has been a Centretown resident for over 4 years, and she's devoted her career to supporting community-led initiatives through program development and research. So over the past 12 years, Naomi has focused her work on advancing the well-being and livelihoods of marginalized communities, particularly Indigenous peoples. Her experience spans community-driven projects addressing climate change, adaptation in northern regions, and promoting Indigenous self-determination. Naomi believes in the power of grassroots, community-led action, and works directly alongside community members to create meaningful and lasting impact. And for the last 4 years, she has been an active member of the Centretown Grassroots Group, advocating for residents' needs, including co-facilitating food security workshops.
That's your, yeah, that's your. Hi. Oh, so loud. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for coming. What a great turnout. And I don't know about you, but I learned a lot right now, so thank you for sharing all the work you do. So this panel discussion, we're going to do 2 little parts. The first part, I'm going to ask about 3 questions to the panelists, And then after, I'm going to ask some questions that were pre-submitted by the audience members. Yeah, so time is tight, so we have a lovely time person here, Amy, and she'll put up cards when you're running out of time. So yeah, let's get things started. So the first question is for the lovely politicians. Catherine, you can hear us? Okay,
I can.
great.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear
That's
you.
what's important. Yeah, thank you.
Actually, keep speaking because your volume's a little low.
Okay.
Oh, perfect, perfect.
Now, yeah, okay.
Yeah. Okay, here
All
we
the way
go.
from Toronto to Centertown.
Here we go. Homelessness and housing precarity are at a crisis point across municipalities in Ontario. Can you tell us what role your level of government plays in solving this crisis and what investment you think is necessary from your level to have a noticeable impact? Who would like to go first?
I can start federally. First of all, thank you very much, and thank you to Centertown Community Association for organizing this. It is an incredible turnout, so a big thank you to all of you for being here from the community. I will say this, and it's great that Catherine, Ariel, and I are here together because we work very closely also together on issues around housing and homelessness. That first of all, between all three orders of government, partnership is extremely important. All three orders of government needs to work together in order to solve this crisis. No one single level of government can accomplish it alone. The role of federal government really is around capital, around money to build housing. This is where the federal government has been playing an active role to make sure that they can bring their fiscal firepower, if I can call it, to get shovels in the ground, to get things built. In Ottawa, we have even a better opportunity, which is that federal government owns a lot of land in Ottawa as well that could be used to build affordable housing. So the kind of things that we're trying to do here in our community here in Ottawa Centre, when you look at places like Tunney's Pasture or Confederation Heights, which are federally owned, that are being repurposed to build housing, the challenge for us and opportunity for us is to build as many affordable housing on those lands as possible.
Catherine, do you want to go next? Catherine, would you like to talk about the province next?
You want me to go next?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. And I often miss Centertown. I also often miss Ottawa when I'm here in Toronto, but no more than this evening when I know you're all there and I'm here. So it's great to be here online. Wish I was there in person. But let me just say that, from the perspective of the provincial government, which I'm not part of, unfortunately, that's the goal, is to be part of it so that we actually can make the change that we need to. But the provincial government is really responsible for the supports for housing, whether that's income supports, health supports. So we need to ensure that we stop people from falling into homelessness, through housing benefits. We actually end homelessness through diversion, increasing the amount of money that we put into support. So it is that ongoing operational dollars that we need from our provincial government. And we also, your provincial government also needs to build housing and build more supportive and affordable housing. And unfortunately, the government that we have, we've just learned that in the next 10 years, we're going to see a 60% decrease in the budget for capital for housing. So we're not going in the right direction. We're going in the wrong direction. But we can, as a community, as a supportive housing community, as a housing community overall, and just people power, we can push all of our levels of government to do better. Like Yasser says, we all have a role, but the provincial government is really failing us at this point. So I look forward to the ongoing conversation about that.
Thanks, Catherine. So the municipal level of government has the least amount of funding tools, and we're often asked to do the most. So I know there's a number of you here that work for either shelters in our city or affordable housing or supportive housing organizations. I know Cale Brown, our head of housing, is here, and my colleague, Councillor Stephanie Plante. So when I was elected in 2022, the picture looked really different. We had, I think it was 5 of our community centers were acting as overflow shelters. Those had been opened up during the pandemic and they never closed because homelessness didn't get any better, it got worse. And so a commitment that we made was to return those recreation centers back to the community, because people still need community centers and senior centers and all those spaces, and to find better housing options for people. And at the time that I was elected in 2022, shelters like the Mission they were saying that up to 80% of the people sleeping in their shelter were actually newcomers, which was a huge shift in the population. So there's also we have a huge global migration crisis. So something that we have done as a city is we've bought land and we've bought buildings and we've converted buildings. So we converted a former office building on Queen Street into transitional housing for newcomers. The YMCA has renovated their building, and they are focusing on what we call low acuity folks, newcomers who are really motivated to be rapidly rehoused, and all of the services are built into those buildings. We also bought a piece of land and a former church property in Orleans on Saint Joseph. And what we were able to do was to pull those newcomers out of the shelter system. And now we've been told, the last time Peter from the Mission came to speak to us at council, he told us now that percentage is at like about 10% in the shelter. So that's been a huge shift. So the shelters are really dealing with folks who are either in an emergency situation or chronically homeless. But the solution to homelessness is not shelters, it's housing. It's housing, housing, housing. So in this term of council, we've doubled our investment in affordable and supportive housing. And the reality is, in an ideal scenario, federal, provincial, and municipal would all be paying 1/3 of the cost. It would be a cost share. Right now, the municipality is paying much, much more. And we're paying for supports and supportive housing that should be provincial responsibility. And something else that's happening is, we know this in my office, you know this when you see people on the streets, that the people who are in the worst shape, who have the most acute needs, who should be living in a place like Dunn House, are consistently passed up for housing because their needs are too high. Because somebody who has a very significant mental illness, who is chronically homeless and has really complex needs, you can't just put them into an apartment without support. It's not going to work. And so I recommend you read a report that was written by our city auditor general that talks about these folks are consistently being passed up for housing. So I don't think we're doing enough on the chronic homelessness side, and we need a 3-alarm fire to get all levels of government working on this, because it's proportionally a really small number of people who, as you saw in the presentation earlier in the Toronto example, are suffering the most and costing the system a ton of money. And it is cheaper to solve homelessness than to allow it to continue. But the problem, of course, is that cost is not borne out on one level of government's balance sheet. It's spread out, right? But we're also doing some amazing work when it comes to prevention. So I just wanted to share some positive news. You may have heard the mayor's announcement committing to end youth homelessness in Ottawa by 2030. That is largely because of an amazing program from an organization here in Centertown called Operation Come Home, that has a head leasing program that rents apartments and then sublets them to youth aging out of foster care, providing 24-hour care and availability. It's wildly successful. They've managed to scale up to 150 units, and they estimate that when they get to 300, they can empty the youth shelters and convert it into supportive housing. Because the goal, right, it's very exciting. Because we want young people to spend, if they end up in shelter, we want them to be there for the shortest period of time possible, because that is going to increase their chance of success. And then, as I said, we're having enormous success with newcomers. And we're also now working on solutions for families, because we haven't really talked about families here. Our family shelter system is at 300% capacity. There are hundreds of families in the city that are living in terrible, cramped motels, largely in Councillor Plante's ward. But we've done some great things. We bought a former retirement residence that was renovated to be made into family housing, and we're looking at purchasing other properties. But the last thing I want to say is I think we just need to be really careful, because what the Alliance to End Homelessness tells us, the more we spend on shelter, it's a system that could just expand and expand and expand endlessly, but what we need is permanent housing. We need permanent, affordable housing, and for people who are in the most difficult situations, that needs to have the supports, like wonderful organizations in our city, like Options Housing, like John Howard Society, Inner City Health doing support. We know what the solutions are, we just need to scale them up. So, and we need the money to do that. Okay. Sorry, I went on for a long time, but.
And I just want to build. I just want to build on the positive news that Ariel is sharing. That there's two other projects very similar to Dunn House that are starting in our community in Ottawa. One is the Matthew Perry House on Royal Ottawa Hospital site. So the land is being given by Royal Ottawa, Ottawa Community Housing, Salas Ottawa is proud that federal capital dollars will be coming from the federal government. This will be wraparound services very similar to Dunn model that is taking place. The second project that is in the early phases right now is at Queensway Carleton Hospital, where they're calling it Housing is Health project, which is right across from the hospital. Is a federal piece of land that we're looking at acquiring so that they can build housing for their patients as well, very similar to model. So there's two such projects that are, one is further ahead, the Matthew Perry House, the second right behind, but has involvement both from federal government, municipal government, and provincial government too, given that the healthcare system, the hospitals are involved in that.
Awesome. Okay, thank you so much. Yes, that's great information. That's great to know that we're working towards some more sustainable solutions. So our second question is for Rob and Keith. What supports do you believe are essential to creating sustainable, long-term solutions in addressing homelessness? And you can take about 5 minutes or so.
I don't think that was working. So, and thank you, the Matthew Perry House. I've been meeting with Kelly often on that, so I'm very happy to see it motoring along. So that's amazing. And my challenge to the group out here is to really support those models in the communities that they're coming into. I know generally that area from my time in Ottawa. I'm just going to say something a little controversial here. Please support Matthew Perry House. I know there's some challenges with the neighborhood, pushback as they like to say, but honestly, our experience where we have had high support programming, whether it's a shelter or housing, and there was considerable pushback, within 1 year, those people turned around. They are now volunteering in our programs. They are happy that we're there. That can happen here, and I think that will happen with Matthew Perry House. Sorry, that's not answering that question, but I just wanted to say that. I think some of the key supports, there's no one particular support other than for supportive housing. I'm going to say that it should be and it must be support or funding for 24/7 operations. It's vitally important that you have in those early days, particularly for folks who are coming directly off the street, directly out of a long-term stays in shelters or in encampments or in who have healthcare issues, to have some level of what we would call broad case management support. Peer work is vitally important. And I want to say not just a plug for peer work, but properly paid peer work on the same level, and funding needs to follow that. So we all recognize that it's a key ingredient. Rob talked about that in his work. We talk about it in our work, and we must pay people a proper wage that is contributing back to society. So there's clinical support, nurse practitioners, all sorts of combinations that are unique to the program and to the population that may be coming into those housing units. So I can't say there's one absolute thing other than peer work and 24-hour case management support. There's probably all other things. The other piece, we often forget about this, and I'm glad in Toronto, and maybe here too, that food security is a big issue, and food security within those programs is vitally important. Having a functional kitchen or structure in place that you can provide food services, meals, is vitally important. Nutrition is a third of the equation of healthcare, housing, and food security, and you need that on site. Sorry, Rob, go ahead. You had time to write a whole bunch of stuff.
Well, I should have got it first. Is this on? I don't know if that's on or if you need it. Okay, yeah. So, echo a lot of that. I think we need to increase our investment in the services as they exist right now. We're hearing an awful lot about strain on hospitals, but the health human resources crisis and the social services crisis is very much alive here in Ottawa. Organizations are barely hanging on right now, and the system is always on the verge of collapse. So I think that we need to recognize that people working in this field are doing difficult, skilled labor, and that they need to be compensated for their time doing that. We are not getting the investments from government within the existing funding envelopes that we're getting in order to help our staff. That's all of our staff, our healthcare staff, including and also our peer staff. We also need to be investing in the existing housing stock because as the housing stock ages, we are at the risk of losing housing even as we're adding on more housing. So it's really important that we have investing in the maintenance of what it is that we have now. In addition to that, we need new investment and increased investment in community health, mental health, and community substance use health. I'm not optimistic that we're going to have enough treatment spaces for people who want to have access to treatment. So we got to find ways of bringing treatment to people, and in ways that people can digest that level of treatment. So we're working on some of those models right now with the peer recovery coaching program called the Life Process Program, where we're training peers in having these conversations with people while they're out there in the community, accompanying to appointments and things like that, and having these recovery-focused types of conversations. So I'll stop there.
Can I just say one thing? Sure. Something that I just want to emphasize, though, is all of the things that the two wonderful people beside me have been talking about really apply to a proportionally small portion of the population and people experiencing homelessness. Most people just need a higher income and a more affordable place to live. It is just I don't know, I think they estimate 70 to 80%, right? Like basic minimum income or higher social assistance rates and more affordable housing. That would probably wipe out 70 or 80% of the shelter system, and then we can really pour our resources into the people that need intensive health supports. But I just think that there's a mistaken notion that all 3,000 people experiencing homelessness in our city right now need supportive housing. No, most of them just need housing and income and food, the basic necessities.
Okay, those were very good answers. And I agree with you about food security. Food security is my background, so I'm like, yes, let's go. Like, everyone needs food, everyone loves food, let's go. So the last question before we move to the audience questions is to the lovely politicians. The question is, the models described by Keith and Rob are examples of effective supportive housing with integrated healthcare, but they require all levels of government to invest in the solution at the same time. So federal capital, municipal operations, provincial healthcare. How do we ensure that all parties are at the table from the beginning to leverage the investment of the other levels of government?
Catherine, do you want to go first? Because you're...
Sure. Yeah, I can take that one. Well, I think we have to elect better governments, certainly. Will we do that? Not much is going to change. We see that in Ontario. We see cuts in Ontario. We see money diverted to priorities that really do not measure the priorities of most Ontarians, really. Most people in this province are worried about affordability, which includes housing. They're worried about healthcare, and they're worried about the economy and jobs. So, when we think about working hand in hand, I mean, my experience comes, from a very ground level, municipal level. Best political job I will have ever had is as a municipal councillor, because you really are, as a municipal councillor, connected to just the daily needs and the changes in that of your community and what is happening on the ground in your community. So, we've got the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, AMO, which I'm going to throw a big bouquet to because they've become, really strong advocates for healthier municipalities, whether that's big cities, mid-sized cities, or smaller, rural areas, which are also seeing an increase actually the highest increase in homelessness and housing insecurity right now is in our smaller towns and rural areas. So when we are looking for solutions, and when we're looking for that pressure that will bring solutions, it's going to come from outside of us. It's going to come from outside of individual politicians, especially those of us in opposition, especially those at the municipal level. It's going to come from people and organizations like AMO, pushing us to do the right thing, pushing our governments to do the right thing. AMO has clearly stated that $2 billion, $2 billion, it's like a rounding error for what that fantasy tunnel under the 401 would cost that Ford is, Premier Ford is looking to build. $2 billion would end encampments across the province, end them. And we know that encampments is a large proportion of people who are experiencing homelessness in this province. So just that alone, $2 billion. We know from AMO that we've got to ensure that people don't fall into homelessness. That we support people, again, whether it's through increases in OW and ODSP. As Councillor Troster just said, most people who are in homelessness don't need supportive housing. Some do, and we need to build the supports and we need to build the housing for them. Absolutely. But for those who don't, and that is the majority, we just need the housing. We need to build that capital. And for me, I look at the outcomes, and today I'm not seeing any, outside of some of the diversion that's happening in different cities, including Ottawa, I'm not seeing the outcomes. I'm not seeing that increase in affordable housing builds, like deeply affordable. And I'm certainly not seeing the investments that we need into eradicating encampments, into keeping people from falling into homelessness, and ensuring that we keep people housed, we pull them out of homelessness, and we continue to build the affordable housing that we need.
To answer your question, I'll go back to where I started, which is you need all three orders of government working together. I mean, this is a big challenge, and you need that. In our city, you're seeing a lot of housing, affordable housing, getting built through not-for-profits like Ottawa Community Housing, CCOC. That is the model one has to follow, whether it's at Gladstone Village or Rochester Heights. You're seeing a lot of construction happening, and that is going to help house more people. And like I said, there's more opportunity on other federal lands in Ottawa, in our community, that can create, that really has that opportunity. Federal government, thankfully, is back in the business of building housing. We're putting in initially $13 billion to build. That's a lot of capital dollars to build more housing. Just recently, the Prime Minister announced here in Ottawa we'll be funding 3,000 affordable homes in Ottawa. So we'll be working closely with City of Ottawa in identifying who are those housing providers, what kind of people who need that housing, where we build them. 2,000 of them will be on federal lands. So that's really important. I think one of the challenges we're starting to run against, and this may exasperate if we pick up the pace, is the capacity to build this housing in the short period of time we have to do. Capacity in terms of, I'm not as concerned about the land, again, speaking about from Ottawa's perspective, because I think we have enough land to build housing, but capacity in terms of skills trade, capacity in terms of the whole supply chain, the raw materials you need. We are really focusing on factory-built housing, was done as a prefab, so that we can really maximize the entire year, so that we're just not limited to a few construction months and stop in winter. This way we can put more housing in place. We're, of course, in this moment, when we're trying to diversify and get away from the Americans, we're really looking at ways, how can we use Canadian lumber, how can we use Canadian-produced steel, all the things that we can then use to build this housing. So that's where a lot of the effort is taking place. Just today in the House of Commons, we tabled a new piece of legislation around Build Canada Homes, so that we can find ways to expedite this entire process, because we recognize the need is now, and the work that needs to happen as quickly as possible.
Okay, so thank you. So I would hazard to guess that the majority of the pressure to end homelessness is placed on the city, right? Like I hear from people dozens and dozens and dozens every week, hundreds every year, who are alarmed about homelessness and want the city to fix it. And so the first thing I'll say is keep doing that. Keep advocating for the city to be better, but we need you to put that pressure on the federal and provincial governments. I'll give you a perfect example. We lose 31 existing affordable apartments for every one that we build, and that is because of a lack of provincial tenancy control, because the provincial government changed the rules so that a landlord can raise the rent as much as they want between tenants, and that is what is leading to a uptick in what we call renovictions, and that is why we will very soon have a renoviction bylaw in Ottawa, which is something I've been working with Acorn to push really hard for, and it's really important. But we wouldn't have to do that if we had vacancy control, right? We need you to push the provincial government to raise the social assistance rates, to raise the OW rates, and to provide that supportive health funding that we need for chronic homelessness. And with all due respect to my friend Yasser, who I know is pushing for this too, we need you to push the federal government to make that vacant land available faster and to keep funding this important work. I often hear people say nothing we're doing is working right now. That's not true. But it needs to be done at scale. You know, Options Housing, so I see Catherine Vandelin is somewhere in the audience, they have a 92% success rate in keeping formerly chronically homeless individuals housed after 2 years. They know how to do this. We need more and more and more. But we can't do that. We can't solve homelessness with the budget that a municipality has. I always say my secret agenda is to radicalize people about municipal finance reform. I know it's really nerdy, but like municipalities manage 60% of the infrastructure across Canada, and we get 8 cents on every tax dollar. We cannot solve homelessness with property taxes. You know, if we had a cut of the GST or a cut of the income tax, if we had direct transfers into the city so that we could solve the problems that have been downloaded onto us, we would do it in a second. But we have to go cap in hand and beg every time. So this partnership is super, super important, but from my perspective, we need you to not just put pressure on the city. Put pressure on the feds, put pressure on the province, because right now the city is paying far more than 1/3 of the cost of solving homelessness, and that's not what property taxes were supposed to be for, right? So I have fantastic partners in Ottawa Centre, but every project is a slog. Every project is going and asking for money again. And if we had that money directly injected into cities so that we can solve homelessness, we would do it in a heartbeat. So thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, so we're going to move on to the pre-submitted questions that a lot of you chose when you registered, and these questions were actually chosen by many people, so a lot of people want to know what we're about to ask right now. And then afterwards, if you didn't get a chance to ask questions, in the next room where there's food and refreshments, you can mingle there and ask and find the people you would like to ask questions to. So, the first question is, how do you involve people with lived experience of homelessness in your planning, policy development, and implementation? I know, Rob, you spoke a little bit about this, but yeah, if anyone who would like to answer it, you don't have to, but I'll just repeat the question again. How do you involve people with lived experience of homelessness in your planning, policy development, and implementation?
Well, I can just say the city has a housing and homelessness table that brings together members from all of the agencies across the city, but also people with lived experience. And that helps guide our policy, and I believe it should be holding us accountable. You know, nothing about us without us. And I know all of the elected officials here spend as much time as we can at the drop-in centers, at the community health centers. Catherine and I spent some time at Center 507 just before Christmas talking with people. Maintaining those conversations is really important. And again, I hear about evictions, I hear about homelessness all the time in my office, and my staff deals with it every day, and that helps inform the policy that I know I bring forward to the table. But there are formal mechanisms within the city to ensure that that's happening. Do I think it needs to happen more? Absolutely.
Very briefly, at Fred Victor, community members and people with lived experience are directly involved in a lot of our on-the-ground programs. Oops, not working. Oh, there we go. That works. People with lived experience and living experience are directly involved in a lot of very what I would call localized decision making at the program level. So they, whether it's our shelters or our housing programs, there are committees or tenant associations that that spring up as well. But as an organization at a governance level, we do have people with lived experience and designated board seats and designated board recruitment for people with lived experience on the board. And recently in our strategic planning process, the focus of that planning, or our new plan, is to be far more client-centered, and it was led by a couple consulting organizations that directly are staffed by people with lived experience throughout that. So it was a very lengthy process, I have to say. Strat planning can be interesting to some. I fully admit I'm not the greatest person that has patience around strategic planning. It took about a year or so, but it was well worth it because there was involvement from our community members. I think close to 800 members of the community or clients of ours participated in one way, shape, or form or another, whether written form or group work or individual interviews. So it was a thorough process in that.
Catherine, would you like to go, or you're good?
Well, I'll just very, very briefly, I think that, from where I sit, certainly it is incumbent upon me as an individual MVP working outside of the government to ensure that I'm hearing from people. And, we do that through our riding association, through direct contact with folks in the community on a variety of issues. But in terms of homelessness, housing homelessness, as Ariel had said, we've gone out, we've gone into shelter, we've gone into programs like Center 507 to talk to people, to understand what is happening on the ground, what is happening with them. We hear obviously from residents daily who are concerned about the rising level of homelessness. And let's not kid ourselves, it is rising. It is that we are not solving homelessness in any way. We are now well over 85,000 people who are homeless. It's been, a significant increase since 2019, and we're, likely going to hit without real intervention. We're likely going to hit close to 300,000 people within the next 9-10 years. So, we go out, we talk to people, try to understand, why people are losing their housing. Obviously, income supports are not sufficient. We're losing rooming houses. We're losing the type of affordable housing that people need in their municipalities, and we have to do something about it. We have to provide people with income, with housing benefits, with the types of affordable housing that they need. Until we stop people falling into homelessness, we are never going to solve homelessness. People are going to be left behind.
Okay, thank you so much. So our second question is, the housing crisis is impacting Ottawa across the entire city, and we are seeing visible homelessness outside the downtown core. How do we ensure that people can get access to health and social services in their own communities to prevent them from falling through the cracks and ending up downtown?
I can speak to that as the downtown city councillor, and I know Councillor Plante is here. So the city recently bought 2 big pieces of land specifically for affordable housing and services, and they're not downtown. One is in Alta Vista on Kilbourne. It's right near Billings Bridge, and it's walking distance to the Glebe. And the other one is a former church property in Orleans. And we are working to develop those into supportive housing hubs and nonprofit affordable housing hubs. We also have our amazing community health centers, and recently I believe it's Pinecrest Queensway was accepted to have a heart hub, if I'm not mistaken, which is actually in the suburbs, which means that folks with addictions and mental health issues in those neighborhoods will be able to access services there. It's really sensitive because on one hand, it makes total sense for people to access services in a highly walkable urban neighborhood, but we also don't want someone to have to leave their home community to access those services. We need supportive and affordable housing and shelter options embedded in every single neighborhood in the city in all 25 wards, or 24 wards, and I think we're working hard to do that. So I'm really excited to see what happens on Kilbourne. It's a huge piece of land. The city is starting to consult on a concept plan. It's accessible, it's a fantastic location, and it does kind of spread people out, because what we want are mixed income, mixed use communities. That is a healthy community. We want people, if they are from Stittsville and want to stay in Stittsville, we want them to be able to stay in Stittsville, because the people who stay in shelter downtown are from Orleans and from Stittsville. They're also from Gatineau. They're from a wide area. So I think buying that land. But something else you can do is talk to your friends and family who don't live in Centretown. You may have seen the outcry when we proposed those ideas of those sprung structures for newcomers in the suburbs, and the really horrible backlash that happened in those communities. And just as my friend here said, help other communities be welcoming. Help tell your story. I'm so proud of the Centretown Community Association, because when they found out that the John Howard Society was building a building on Lisker Street to welcome Indigenous women with a history of either homelessness or incarceration or both, they didn't set up signs saying, "We don't want you here." They put together a welcoming committee and put together welcome packages. And when I went to the Christmas party at that building, neighbors from the street were at the party because they've gotten to know the women and they appreciate having supportive housing in their community. And so we want to build these services in other communities, and we need you to talk to your friends and family in those communities and help them understand why it's a good thing and why their neighborhood may look and feel a little bit different, but that's okay.
Excellent point. And just several mics there. Well, there, one of them works. It's going to take a pause. I'm just going to take up on that comment around getting involved, or for the communities to get involved. How many in this room work for a nonprofit that has a board? Just raise your hand. How many people are on your board? Like between 10 and 15 people? And they are living across the city of Ottawa? Get them involved. Get them out into those communities they live in to do exactly what Ariel is saying. Our board members, and they've been working with a couple other boards in Toronto, it's more related to shelters, are actually going out into communities and saying, negating, I think, or mitigating the backlash that shelters and sometimes supportive housing in those neighborhoods have. So the power of your nonprofit board, your volunteers make a hell of a big difference to those communities in their area, because it's not an organization going out there. It's a volunteer giving of their time in something they believe.
Do you want to add anything? Oh, sorry, Catherine.
No, I'm really big on the screen. So
You can go after.
Try not to take up
Certainly,
too much
I support
space.
the notion of people getting access to the care they need in their home community. It's excellent preventative work for people. It's really important that there's a full range of things that are available for folks. I also support this because when we did a survey of people who use drugs, they also asked for this as well. They didn't want everything to be located in one place. They wanted to be able to access services outside of the downtown core. So again, this is one of those things that we can all agree on is the right thing to do, and something that will help the overall health of all communities. I will also say, though, that it does require political courage and leadership to make that happen, because people don't like change. People are afraid of people who are unhoused, and sometimes there's a lot of misinformation about that goes out, and stigmatization. So it does require political leadership to say, no, it is our ward's duty and our responsibility to take care of our fellow citizens.
Catherine, would you like to say something?
Yeah, I guess in addition to what's been said, it's very good. I just want to talk about diversion because we are doing very good work in Ottawa on diversion. We've pilot that the Alliance, Katie Burkholder-Harris at the Alliance has been spearheading, that is, seeing something like over 20%, I think it's 22% successful diversion rate from shelter. People just, we're just not allowed, we're just keeping them out of shelter. People have other options sometimes, and we're taking that time to understand that. And, when we talk about, what do we do to ensure that, that we're meeting people where they're at, not always just in the downtown, but across the city. I want to talk about youth coming out of child welfare. And the fact that, of the 1,000 youth a year that do, between 500 and 600 go directly into shelter on their 18th birthday. These kids are dropped off and they go directly into shelter. And now we know that it would take something like $15 million across this province to ensure that doesn't happen, so that kids on their 18th birthday, we're giving them options. So it's one of the first things I'm going to do March 23rd when this government comes back into the legislature, is bring that in, because there's no way that there's any MPP anywhere in this province that wouldn't agree that $15 million to keep 500-600 kids out of shelter who are in the child welfare system is not something that we should do immediately. And then just on top of that, I just want to kind of reiterate what others have said. When there is housing going into your neighborhood, whether it's regular housing, whether it's a fourplex or it's a 4-story or, supportive housing, people will always come out and raise opposition. But when it is housing that that you need in your community, for the people in your community and people in the city, the best thing you can do is come out and voice your support for it. For city councilors, it is the best thing that they have behind them to ensure that we have the housing moving forward in our municipalities.
Thank you. I think we'll have time for one more question before we have closing remarks. So I'm trying to decide between two questions. Which one's like, do you want to hear more? Okay. Okay,
Rapid fire edition.
Okay, so the first one is, if after today we all agreed on what the plan was to solve this issue, it would still take many years to make it happen. What should we be doing today to address the needs of people who are currently homeless? And I guess some examples could be warming centers or consumption sites. So 1 minute, quick responses.
Something else you might not know is that the Ontario government cut the amount of money that the city gets to provide rent supplements to people. So we used to be able to provide something as the Canada-Ontario Housing Benefit, the COB. We used to be able to use that for homelessness prevention. So if somebody had arrears on their rent, we could give them enough money so they didn't lose their housing and become homeless. Now we're only able to give it to people who are actively homeless. So put pressure on the Ontario government. That's really the missing piece here, to fund those income supports and to fund those healthcare supports and to raise basic minimum income and to raise social assistance.
So thinking about the type of work that we do around working with people while they're currently homeless, while they're currently living in encampments, and beginning to build them up, and that recovery journey can start from that point. There's no reason we can't have those conversations at that point while people are actively using substances, actively living in some of the chaos that's the streets. Because this is their lives, and this is normal. If we're waiting for things to change in order to treat people with dignity and to provide them with hope and opportunity, then we're just leaving them behind once again.
I totally agree. COB, absolutely, but community engagement, engage with the people on your street. Move the needle forward on this conversation, put pressure where pressure needs to happen. And it may not be immediate, but keep the conversation going and keep the pressure on.
Thank you. Catherine, you're good?
Yeah, like folks have said here, the housing benefit is critical to keeping people in their housing, diverting people out of shelter, raising OWODSP. If people have enough money, they'll be able to afford housing. And really, we have got to stop building and putting money into shelters. Since 2016 in Ontario, we have invested 34, the increase of 34% has gone into shelters, and the number of homeless people has increased by 32%. So when you put money into shelters, you increase the number of people who are homeless, because you are not taking that money and putting it into housing supports. So we've got to move away from investing in shelters. I am serious about it. Every time I hear about building more shelters, it makes me upset.
Yes. I think it makes a lot of us upset. Thank you so much. Okay, our last question is, considering that the largest factors contributing to homelessness result from the policies, decisions, and limited actions of generations of politicians at all levels of government, what would you do differently going forward that would show us that you are committed to a long-term strategy to ending homelessness?
I mean, look, I will say what I've been saying: build. This is about money. We know what the solutions are. They're right presented. This is not rocket science. What we need is money. We need to put that money to use. We need to build housing as quickly possible. We need to make sure that supports that people need is properly funded, so that those who live in those homes are getting the health care, getting the basic needs that they need. I would also say, I think one of the biggest challenge is around income security. Things are expensive. There is an affordability crisis. We need to make sure that people have higher incomes. And whether that's, I've been a long advocate for basic income, whether it's basic income or through other dedicated support programs, this is where I think governments need to really put their collective minds together to make sure that we're coming up with those supports so that people don't get into a circumstance where they need, where they fall into homelessness, they become unhoused, other challenges around addictions and mental health then take over their lives. That's where I think as a society, we've been failing.
So I made a decision when I decided to run for office. I mean, I don't want to abandon the basic values of our community. And I have to say there's a lot of pressure right now to reach for carceral solutions, to reach for, you know, more police and more arrests and just make this issue go away. And I will never denigrate the humanity of one of my neighbors. People experiencing homelessness are our neighbors. And even though it's hard, we need to be fighting for evidence-based solutions, which also happen to be compassionate solutions. And I think it can be politically expedient, you know, to just say, to agree with this incredible compassion fatigue that's happening right now, but my commitment is just to stick with it and to really reject this narrative that nothing we're doing is working and that we need to reach for policies that are cruel and that we know are not going to actually solve the problem. So, you know, I commit to keep listening, keep fighting, and look, I'm just in this for as long as the community wants me to do it. But, you know, once you've seen homelessness up front, I mean, this is a fight I'm going to be in for the rest of my life. I cannot imagine a more crucial problem that we need to solve. And I'm just so inspired by all of the people doing the work in the community. And thank you. I mean, really.
There you go. Open. Okay. Catherine, did you want to say something or?
Sure. I'll just say that, you know, for all of us here, you know, all, especially those of us in those, certainly people in organizations working every single day, none of us can understand and really, you know, appreciate what you do every day. So I just want to say thank you to all of the organizations that are here, the people who have dedicated their lives to ending homelessness, to making sure that people are okay. You know, from a government perspective, we need change, you know, at all three levels. I'll be honest, like Build Canada Home, sure, you know, we're looking at 26,000 units over 10 years. Half of those will be affordable. That's 13,000 across this, you know, country. It's not nearly enough. It's not, it doesn't even touch the, you know, what we need for affordability. You know, the province not doing nearly enough, cutting, spending billions on, you know, when congestion happens, they spend billions to end congestion. When homelessness happens, they cut. You know, we've got a horrible provincial government. The city, I know Ariel fights hard every day, but you know what? They're, you know, still spending $500 million. I know Ariel voted against it for Lansdowne. $500 million. Think about what we could do. $2 billion to end encampments across this province, but we're going to dump $500 million into Lansdowne. You know, it's priorities, folks. Like, we've got the money. It's there. We can do anything we want with it. You have got to insist that the people who are representing you are doing what you need them to do with that money. If you care about your neighbors who are homeless, if you care about yourself, if you're worried one day that you could fall into homelessness, I know I am. You've got to insist that the people who are representing you are proving themselves. And it's not in what we're telling you we're going to do, it's in the outcomes. So always ask about where are the outcomes? How have you decreased homelessness? How have you made life more affordable for people? Where are the new jobs? Make sure that we can all answer those questions for you.
Thank you so much. Yes, so we're now done with our Q&A portion, and maybe we'll just sit here while Rob does the closing remarks, Rob Decker. But thank you again, panelists, for answering questions. Thank you, audience. And again, remember, if you have questions, there'll be time afterwards to ask. Yeah.
Let's give a warm applause for our panelists. Yasser, Keith, Rob, Ariel, and Catherine, thanks for joining us online. And Naomi, thank you for doing a wonderful job of moderating our discussion this evening. On behalf of the organizing community associations, which are Action Sandy Hill, Lower Town Community Association, the Glebe Community Association, Dalhousie Community Association, and the Centertown Community Association, thank you very much for being here and attending this event in person. And if you are watching it on YouTube, thank you very much for joining us online. Homelessness is not just about lacking a roof or over one's head. It's about the loss of safety, stability, and the fundamental dignity of every human, and every human deserves. It's a challenge, particularly in Centertown and surrounding areas, that affects all of us, individuals, families, communities, and businesses. Its causes are complex. They are as complex as the consequences and the solutions that are needed to solve it. People experiencing homelessness need deeply affordable and safe housing. Deeply affordable housing means non-market housing options such as supportive housing, below market rent, and rent geared income housing. Housing is a basic human right. A new report from Ontario's municipalities shows that homelessness is growing across Ontario. And with an estimated 85,000 people who were without a home in 2025 and nearly 2,000 encampments across Ontario. We need to and we can do better. Everyone's life depends on it. So thank you to our elected officials. As I said, Keith, Rob, and staff from the Community Health Center and volunteers for joining us this evening. Anybody who helped with the organization of this event, could you please raise your hands or stand so we can thank you? Also want to extend a great deal of thanks to Knox Church for allowing us to host this important seminar this evening. We also want to challenge people here to participate, start a team, and support the coldest night of the year on February 28th. It's a winter, did you actually write this? Winter Terrific? Winter Terrific, Win Terrific, family-friendly fundraising walk in support of any of our 7 local charities such as the Mission, Youth Services Bureau, Cornerstone Housing for Women, Western Ottawa Community Resource Center, Capital City Mission and Jericho Road, Ottawa Inner City Ministries, Lionheart, Ottawa Stittsville, and you can sign up for the walk on the coldest night of the year website. Only have a couple more announcements to do. So, when you leave the building at the back, there are donation buckets there. All the donations that are raised as you leave the event tonight are going to the Centertown Community Health Center. We will accept debit and credit card donations as well. So please, on the way out, please help as you can. We want to make sure that as you leave, we also have your contact information from the registration table so we can keep in touch with you. And lastly, there is a networking opportunity for everybody in the Geneva room next door on my left for some light refreshments after the event. So again, on behalf of all the associations and our panelists, thank you very much for joining us, and hope to talk to you in the other room. But if you're going home, thank you very much.